I went through a little bit of a tumultuous time, and I remember I was in a play that she was directing, and I actually had to call collect her office from jail, and let her know I wasn't doing it. And I was so, I felt so disappointed because I know I disappointed her. And I went to see her, and I was going to take some time off from, college theater and everything. I remember she said something to the effect of, of a lot of people I know, of all the people I know, or I don't want to make it sound arrogant. She says, you're the one that I know would make it because you're a risk taker. But if I picked up the paper and read that something horrible happened to you, I wouldn't be surprised because you're a risk taker and you have to take the right risks.
Welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast. In this podcast, you will experience wisdom, advice, and stories from creatives all over the world. Your host is Amani Roberts, who is a DJ, music producer, professor, avid book reader, and developing salsa dancer. On the show, we love to share the stories of creative professionals, especially people who've gone from the corporate life to the creative life. Once again, welcome to the Amani Experience Podcast.
Welcome to episode 35 of the Amani Experience Podcast. For this show, we have actor Chris Pardal. Really enjoyed our conversation with Chris. We have a great discussion about hip-hop music, kind of old-school hip-hop. That was cool. He was extremely transparent about his history as an ecstasy dealer, so I really appreciate his frankness and openness for discussing that. And then I kind of love how we talked about how Chris has a love for romantic movies, as do I. So that was a cool conversation. He gave out some great advice about acting and kind of staying positive and just keep fighting and don't stop going for what you want to do, especially as a creative. I really appreciate that. I think you will enjoy this episode. Let's get to a review. We have a review today by LizSanity13. And this review says, unlike a lot of the Creative Biz podcasts that put the host kind of on center stage with the guests, Amani's style is much closer to that of a late night host or James Lipton, a la Inside the Actor's Studio. He is a fantastic facilitator who asks just the right questions to draw out their story, and you could tell that he does his research of the guests beforehand. A fantastic podcast to add a little inspiration to your day. Thank you very much for your review, LizSanity13. Please remember you can leave us a review on iTunes as well, and I can read it on one of the shows. Now, it's time to get to the show. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the show. I'm going to read our guest bio for today, and then we'll get right to our interview. Our guest today was born in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and moved to Florida at the age of 15. He was a professional dancer in the early to mid-90s as a quote-unquote house dancer for clubs in the Tampa Bay area. He also danced with Todd Hefner and Company and in several Florida hip-hop groups. He toured in Connecticut, New York, Florida, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. He began pursuing an education and was quickly recruited into the dance departments of St. Petersburg College and the University of South Florida. His choreographers have included Deborah Jo Hughes, Katura Robinson, John Parks, Colette Harding, and Klaus Stepp Reinhardt. While in college, performing musical theater, he was then recruited into the drama department where he began acting and writing. I would like to welcome Chris Pardal to the show. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going great. Thank you for being here with us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So right now we're here in Manhattan Beach, California in our lovely mobile studio. And you grew up in a combination of Connecticut and Florida, correct?
Yeah, a little bit of East Coast until I was 15 and missed the food, but I hated the weather, and then I moved to paradise. I moved to St. Pete, Florida in 1988. Well, I just gave my age away, so there you go. Yeah.
So West Coast of Florida, know it well. I used to live in Miami, so I'm from the East Coast too, D.C. area.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, definitely know your area well. If you were going to summarize yourself in 30 seconds or less, how would you summarize yourself?
I am an artist who is someone that believes in sculpting words and emotions in order to provide catharsis for people who may not be able to express themselves in that same way.
Nice. Okay. Good summary there.
It's taken about 20 years to come up with that. So.
And when was it in your life that you realized that you wanted to be first a dancer and then an actor?
Well, I was in Connecticut during the boom of breakdancing, and I mean, it was everybody was doing it. I just remember thinking how special it was because it wasn't just the dancing, it was hip hop, it was the rap, it was the graffiti, it was a whole culture that was starting out. And I remember going to record stores and wanting to get rap, and they would say, "Oh yeah, there's the rap section." It'd be Run DMC,
right?
Maybe Kool Moe Dee, Beastie Boys. And people said it wouldn't last, but I knew that it would, and that was just my introduction. I love to dance. I love to move. I think moving, the physical expression of your body is such a great emotional release. I was also fortunate enough, I mean, I already dated myself. I'm 45, so, Michael Jackson's Thriller came out.
Yes.
And watching him dance was magical. It
Right.
was magical. I mean, everybody, they would have remember when they had all the TVs lined up at Kmart, and, he would come on and start dancing and everybody would just watch,
Yeah.
And I just thought, man, what a way to be able to express yourself. Moved to Florida. Breakdancing, did decline here, and then, which ultimately would make a comeback. And then in '91, actually late '90, a friend of mine, Ian Martin, I went to a club, and I had met him. I was working at 7-Eleven, and I met this dude, real cool guy. And I went to a club called Bennigan's After Dark.
Okay.
And I was watching him dance, the MC Hammer, Rob Bass, those days, watching him dance, and I was watching all the girls around him watching him dance. And I said, all right, I got to get back into this. And so I did, and I followed him up to Cincinnati and just furthered my dancing and got even better. It was my life.
Okay.
Moved back to Florida and became a professional hip-hop dancer.
All right. So when you talk about old school hip-hop, you mentioned some of my favorites. Kool Moe Dee's a favorite. Run
Yeah.
DMC. What songs when you think about old school hip-hop, when you first got your start, what songs come to mind?
Oh, man. Listening to rap, Run DMC, it's so, there were guys before them, but that album, Raising Hell, and when they did Walk This Way,
Yeah.
I didn't know who Aerosmith was. I didn't know, and I thought this was just these guys, and I had never heard any type of music that was just from the guts. And then LL Cool J, I Need Love,
Classic.
NWA.
Yes.
We had Public Enemy. It was such, going right from the mid to late to 80s to the early 90s, we had such, we were spoiled. I think we were spoiled. We had Tupac, Biggie, we had gangster rap, we had psychedelic rap, we had Del the Funky Homo Sapien, De La Soul,
Yeah.
PM Dawn, and even, say what you will, I think he doesn't catch a lot of flack now, but guys like MC Hammer or Freedom Williams from CNC Music Factory, Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
These are guys that we danced to, and it was you listened to it for a different reason than you did, let's say, X-Clan or Public Enemy or Ice Cube.
Yeah.
So there's so many different, I loved all genres of it, and it just became such like I said, we're spoiled. I just thought that's what, okay, yeah, this is what rap is. We have Tupac, Biggie, Jay-Z, Nas. That's just what rap is always going to be.
Yeah.
And of course now, it's not like that.
So talk to us about now. Like, what's your
Oh, man.
opinion of the evolution of hip-hop and rap? Because you were there at the beginning. And to see it now, what are your thoughts?
I never wanted to be the old guy that says, oh, you don't know about music. And I respect change. There's always going to be change. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine about this the other day. I do wish, I'd love for Wu-Tang to come out with more stuff.
Right.
Some of those guys from back then, they're still fairly young. I do believe that hip-hop, rap especially, is fueled by where you live, how you come up. The conversation that I was having, I love cover songs for any other genre of music, but for rap, no. It's the original, it's when it was written, who delivered it, the studio, who produced it. Nowadays, some of the delivery, some of the way the voices are and how it's produced, I'm just not a huge fan.
Okay.
I'm just not a huge fan.
I might make your day. I think Wu-Tang has released something pretty recently, so I'm going to have to link you to that.
Oh,
So
really?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll double check before we quote me 100% accurate, but I think I might make your day.
I'm
with
going to
that.
check as soon as I leave.
Cool. So, breakdancing, like, can you still kind of bust a move out there?
I still dance.
Okay.
I still dance.
Good.
I mean, I'm not doing stuff like I did before. And that's another thing that's progressed so much. I mean, the kids nowadays, the breakdancing, they just have the physics perfected.
Yeah.
Incredible. Just incredible. I'm so happy that it made a huge comeback. And I think now it's really cemented. It's here to stay.
Definitely. Talk to us about how you got in the early to mid 90s in Tampa Bay. How did you find your way to Dr. Sybil Johnson?
Oh, Dr. Johnson. I went to St. Petersburg College, and in '95 I was cast in a play, and it was my first play, real play as an adult. And there was the teacher at the time was Carla Brantley. So of course the acting bug bit. It was an amazing experience. It was a great part. I won some awards at the Florida Theater Conference. I thought, I'm born to do this, and so I stayed in the theater department. Carla Brantley left, and then Dr. Sybil Johnson came in '96, and she just was someone that had just so much love and compassion for people. Beautiful big black woman with dreadlocks that I still can feel when hugging her, and I could still smell the nachamba on her. She took an interest in everybody, but she said so many things that today hit me so much more profoundly retrospectively, and I wish they hit me back then.
Yeah.
She was experimental. We did a musical once on this island, and which is primarily, and the musical is about dark-skinned black people on an island and the prejudice against lighter-skinned black people on the island, and she cast white people in it, and then black. So she would always, or we did Medea. We would do Greek tragedy, which I loved, Medea or Antigone, and she did a Civil War theme for Antigone.
Nice.
And it was just so thinking outside the box. So I had such a great taste of what it's like to not be set in what you think something is supposed to be, which is of course now huge.
Right.
It's a huge thing, and people are. It's really hard for them to break out of, wait a minute, Thor's white, and they can't think outside the box. Well, I experienced the opposite of that, where I was included in things that I might not have been included in because of her. And one time she told me, she says, Chris, I don't want to get emotional. She's a very special woman, and I didn't know you were going to ask about her.
I do my research.
Yeah, I went through a little bit of a tumultuous time, and I remember I was in a play that she was directing, and I actually had to call collect her office from jail, and let her know I wasn't doing it. And I was so, I felt so disappointed because I know I had disappointed her. And I went to see her, and I was going to take some time off from, college theater and everything. And I remember she said something to the effect of, of a lot of people I know, of all the people I know, or I don't want to make it sound arrogant. She says, you're the one that I know would make it because you're a risk taker. But if I picked up the paper and read that something horrible happened to you, I wouldn't be surprised because you're a risk taker and you have to take the right risks. And she was just so right. She was so right about everything. Just I miss her. I think about her, so much. She's taught theater in Africa. I'm not sure where she's at now. She's a little bit hard to find online. You see little things. I'm always looking. Just a very, very, very special woman. Very special woman.
And if you were to see her today, say she just walked in. She's not going to walk in, so don't worry.
Yeah.
But say you were to see her, what would you tell her?
I would give her a hug. I would give her a hug and smell her and say, I am on the right track and I'm still here.
Good. Thanks for sharing. Great story.
Sure.
On our show, the theme is like people who used to work in corporate America but then have left and gone and done their own creative venture. You took an interesting route because you used to work for Todd Hefner and Company, and then eventually you found your way out to L.A. and you working for yourself in plays, acting, all that. In your opinion, what's important for creative professionals such as yourself, myself, to succeed in today's business environment?
Well, what's important to succeed is just doing it. I think a major mistake with me, or a mistake, it's all a learning experience.
We're all learning, yes.
It was not coming out here. Oh, I need to save $5,000. I need to save $10,000. Oh, I need another semester or two in college. And next thing you know, time goes on. There's, at least in my life, there's that line between planning and execution. You don't want to be careless so that you set yourself up for failure. But man, I could plan my way out of a project. I could plan my way out of moving. I could plan my way out of writing. And now, I'm constantly growing. We're not the same people that we were 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. But even now, it's happening so much faster. I'm feeling with not just me, but I think everybody socially, where I'm really, really taking in over the last year or two. You have to. You're always going to be uncomfortable. There's always going to be a level of discomfort. And our brains are wired to be comfortable. It's what keeps us safe.
Yes.
It's what keeps us safe. We don't want to be hungry. We don't want to, and that's the source of all of our demise is with how we are with people, how we are with other races, how we are with other genders, how we are with, I want to start my own business, or, should I start a podcast, or should I, and, or do I, I want to make a movie. Do I reach out to somebody, or am I not ready? And for me, there has to be a certain level of discomfort. And again, I'm not going to be careless. I'm not going to be unprepared. But, when I came over here today, I thought of 1,000 excuses not to come because it's scary. Everything is so scary, but everything is not scary, and everything turns out okay. But you prepare, and then you accept that there's always going to be a little bit of discomfort, and then you hope that there's other interesting things along the way, because that's life.
Right.
That's life. You know, when you meet the love of your life, that's an accident a lot of times.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, a happy accident.
Happy accidents,
Yeah.
I guess now with what do the kids use? Tinder or whatever. Yeah,
It's like an intentional accident.
yeah.
So we go back. You're in Tampa, like 2001, 2002. How did you find your way to LA? Because you got here in 2009. What did you do to get yourself here in those like next 7-8 years?
Well, I worked on and off for a grocery store, Albertsons.
Know it well. Yeah.
93.
Yeah.
And that was always I've always been an artist with a side job, and I was working for them. I left college in 2001. Happy ending. I went back, wrote and directed a play, and I was in it, and Dr. Johnson was there, and it was the last play before the theater closed, and she moved. So it was a brilliant ending to that story, which was cool.
Good.
Of course, I would stay in Florida for the next 7 years. When I was in the dance scene in the 90s, I was there for the beginning of the rave scene.
Got it.
And I knew a lot of the ecstasy suppliers, and I knew a lot of the people who were using, and it was such a new thing, and I started selling ecstasy, and that was my thing for several years. In 2003, I remember I prayed for. I had friends dying, friends going to prison, and I prayed to God to not. I didn't know what else I could do for a living to make that kind of money. I prayed. I sat in a bus stop in Gulfport, Florida, at 2:00 in the morning, just praying, and I stopped selling. That was it.
Cold turkey.
And I stopped. Yeah, I completely stopped. And you get addicted to selling as much as you do the lifestyle. Full-time, worked for Albertsons, became a manager, and still always talked about someday I'm going to move to LA, I'm going to do this. I'm also a screenwriter as well. And in 2008, this is a true story, it was June, I prayed. Again, as you can see, I'm a spiritual person.
Love it, yes.
I prayed to take this desire of moving away, because I kept talking about moving, and I just felt, you know what, it's not happening. I'm not going anywhere. I have to seriously consider, the rest of my life is going to be here. I'll just focus on screenwriting. You could kind of do that online from a distance. And you know what? It was the next day, but because I don't want to sound exaggerated, let's just say it was in the same week. It was the next day. I was on my way to work. Another manager called. I got a call. We had an emergency meeting at work. Never happened, ever. My friend calls me up. He's another manager at the store. He says, "You know what this is about, right?" I said, "No." He said, "We're getting bought out by Publix, our biggest competitor."
Yeah.
I was listening to One Republic, their album, Stop and Stare, driving to work, and I remember thinking, that's it. I'm moving to LA. And I still took a year, but 2009, I moved. Yeah, we closed. Albertsons closed.
Right.
In September of that year, September of 2008, and I moved out here.
Okay. And then when you got out here, like, how did you find your way? Because coming from Tampa Bay, Florida, to Los Angeles, California, Tampa's a big enough city, but LA is a different world. How did you find your way, especially with the history of, like, you used to kind of be like an ecstasy dealer, and so there's lots more temptation here. How did you find your way and keep your head above water?
I had a friend out here, Kelly Johnson, luckily, and he was actually in the rave scene with me at the time, but moved out here in 2001. And which is another thing. He was always a contact that I have. That's another thing. Ask for help and take the help.
Yes.
That's another learning lesson.
Preach.
So finally, I came out, I stayed with him, and spent the first couple of months finding my way around the city, and it wasn't bad. It was pretty it was pretty easy. It's easier than I thought.
Right.
I mean, there's hurdles and obstacles, obviously. But you know, it'll be 9 years this year.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. But it's always, you know, there's always growth. There's always, you know, I'm growing out here, and I've grown out here as a human more than I grew when I was out there. So it's been beneficial to me. Still can't stand the traffic. Still cannot stand the traffic and the parking. It's the only thing the city's efficient with is giving parking tickets.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, fix the road.
Yeah.
But I
Cool.
digress.
That's okay. Good digression, because I agree with you. When do you think was the turning point for your career? When did you say, okay, I'm acting, this is working, like I'm all in, and this, you know, sky's the limit, and I can really do this?
It's interesting. That's one of those questions that I think is so. I've also become much more retrospective, and it's funny because you could look back and think, oh, that was the moment. Man, 6th grade, Mr. Subneski let me write and direct puppet shows. What, you know, or high school, Mrs. Newberry telling me she was going to kick me out of class unless I went to the drama department because I needed an outlet, you know, and these are things that I just think about now, you know, over the last couple of years. Those are turning points in life, which is a turning point, I believe, in a career. You know, I guess logistically speaking, I met my first agent for 90210, Theo, and his last name escapes me now.
We can look him up.
Yeah. And his last name, he was in Police Academy 3. He was a little kid actor. But anyway, yeah, cool dude. But I met him, and he started representing me, which was really cool. And, you know, going out on auditions, booking things, I would always think, oh, man, I'm on Operation Repo. That's a career changer. And it is, but it's not Star Wars either.
Yes.
Starring in a movie with Eric Roberts was, you know, doing Sector 4 was fantastic. I did a movie called Abducted, which is, it's a Netflix release overseas, which was cool. You know, doing that, being on bigger and bigger sets, working with James Franco, Zeroville, was cool, and you know, and him recognizing me from, you know, his school. Then Corbin Nash, right. Obviously. What's interesting about movies too is you could shoot. We shot that a couple of years ago. You know, we shot it a couple of years ago, so that was. You know, that was a career changer. And I just had an experience where, I don't know if you know who John Patrick Shanley is. Well, you do, and okay. I'm going to prove it. So he wrote and directed Doubt, the movie Doubt. Yeah. And he's a screenwriter and director and a playwright. And he wrote the movie Moonstruck, and he got the Academy Award for it. So most of the people know those two movies. In the theater world, he's, you know, even more, you know. Yeah. More well-known, and we did a workshop with him, and I got to work on his 8 pieces of unpublished material for the week, and we did gender reversals, we had discussions about men and women and life, and I mean, we cried, he cried, it was, and for me, what changes about my career as an actor is, you know, we go into it, and I'm paraphrasing a lot of great teachers, by the way. This isn't my wisdom. We go into it for the wrong reasons. We go into it for fame or celebrity, or I would say 90% of the people, especially if we're not growing up with it, or there's an attention thing, or there's something else that's there. Finding the real reason in your heart and in your soul why you're doing it, and what and realizing what you're really giving to people, that's a career changer. Because if you're not doing anything for the right reason, I think you become static. I think you become sad and depressed.
Unfulfilled.
Absolutely. So doing this workshop, and I worked with other great actors as well. Frances Fisher was one of the actors, and I got to see her work. She was the mom on Titanic, Unforgiven, just did so much amazing work. And Titanic's my favorite movie.
I was going to ask you about the love stories. I have read that favorite movies are love stories like Titanic, Somewhere in Time, Notebook, The Professional.
Yeah.
How did that come to be?
Yeah.
A breakdancer that loves love stories.
Oh man, I mean, yeah. Well, so working with John and Francis, it's such a it's a career changer because it reinforces why I'm doing it and the real reason why we're supposed to do things and be good humans to other people. The love story thing. So growing up, my my mom is a very emotional person, with the tears, with the anger, and my dad as well. I grew up very masculine men in my family, but I was never told you can't cry, you can't be emotional. And I remember my grandfather, my avô, that means grandfather in Portuguese. He came from Brazil. He, when he would leave and go back to Florida where he retired and I was up in Connecticut, I would cry, I'd be sad, and I'd see my dad crying, my grandfather crying. And these are masculine guys. And I grew up where that was okay. It's okay to have that. And my mom, I would see her crying during Rocky or crying during, love stories, of course, but during those different moments in movies.
Yeah.
And I remember her being mad at me saying, "Damn it, Christopher, Rocky, it's not a movie about fighting, it's a movie, it's a love story and everything." And she was right. And I just love love stories. I think I've always connected with them. Especially the tragic, the bittersweet ending, that comes from the Romeo and Juliet, the Titanic, Somewhere in Time. But it's probably from being in touch with that ability to express my emotions, talking about Dr. Johnson, I like that I'm able to do that. I couldn't imagine closing that off or shutting it down 100%. I think that's the issue with a lot of guys. I think that's a major problem, and what causes the issue with guys is this emotional repression and then the societal sexual repression. You put those two together, and then you give them alcohol and frat houses, and they've never been away from home. Nothing but bad things are gonna.
That's a problem.
It's a huge problem. And talking about things that I want to give, Stephen Adly Guirgis, who's another playwright, but he also wrote The Get Down.
Okay.
He wrote he wrote The Get Down. He has or he had for sure, and I don't know if he's still doing it, but there was a program where he's working with people in prison, teaching them how to express themselves, through their emotions, through plays, through acting.
Yeah.
I said, man, I have to do that. I have to do that with guys. I could speak on guys because I'm a guy,
right.
And I know that that's something that men need, and men just become kind of forgotten if they're poor, or if they're they've been to jail or prison, or it doesn't take a lot to get that scarlet letter where you can't get a job, you can't do anything. And I really believe that acting, theater is a way to steer people, guys, into a different direction. Women too, I'm sure.
Right.
Women too, I'm sure. But again, I'm just talking about, because I don't want to talk on behalf of a sex that I didn't grow.
Yeah.
But I really believe that. Even fine arts in general, dancing, music. Nobody's doing that anymore in school. Music is gone.
The arts, they've eliminated the arts from school. It's really challenging. Yeah.
It's our biggest export.
Mm-hmm.
It's our biggest export. I'm not buying a TV that was made in Texas. You know, people all over the world buy our entertainment, and they'll keep buying it, and they'll buy more and more and more and more. So why can't we truly invest in our kids and have fine arts programs where they become the artists of tomorrow? You know, these car factories in Detroit, make them studios.
All right. Yeah.
You know, let kids be artists. It is an outlet. It's an emotional outlet that would prevent a lot of the terror that we're seeing today.
So a couple follow-up questions. Have you heard of the book The Power of Moments? So there's a book out, The Power of Moments, and just how you describe some of your most notable moments in your life, whether it be third grade or sixth grade or college, they kind of describe that. So you kind of already described in terms of some of your moments in your life that kind of were turning points. So I wanted to share that with you. And then with your love stories and the movies, I noticed that you also picked, or you had mentioned The Professional, also known as Leon. And that's a great story, and that's a unique kind of love story.
Yeah.
And so how did that enter your list? Because that's one of my favorites. I love that movie. So how did that kind of end up on your list?
1996, I was dating a ballet dancer in college, and she was madly in love with Gary Oldman. Madly in love. And I said, who the hell is Gary Oldman? I don't even know who this guy is. He's a no-name actor. And she said he was Dracula. He was, you know, and then of course he had done True Romance. He was Drexel Spivey in True Romance. I said, oh my God, that's Gary Oldman. So The Professional was one of the movies that he did, and that's how I watched, how I saw that.
Young
movie.
Natalie Portman.
Young Natalie Portman, and she looked exactly like my sister back then. Yeah. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, she looks just like my sister. But the movie was it's just such a different type of a movie. And it's a hitman story and a love story. I mean, the acting is fantastic.
Yes.
Gary Oldman is psychotic. Back when that's all he was known for, you know. So I just absolutely love that movie. It's one of the movies that you watch at least once a year.
Yeah.
They did did you like the recut?
I didn't even pay attention to the recut, so I don't know. I didn't watch it. I like to prefer the original, so that's just me.
Yeah. Even sometimes when the director recuts it, it's good, but I like the original. I love the original.
Right.
I know some people said that there was this thing. Oh, it's weird because he's old. I didn't sense any type of a relationship like that at all. The little girl has a crush, but
basically that's
he was a father figure. And oh my God, at the end when he's. You're going to grow roots big and strong. I'm going to go. And then he just screams. Oh, man, just that was such a powerful love story. Man on Fire, since we're talking about it.
Yes, Dakota Fanning, Denzel Washington.
One of his best movies. My favorite American actor. The best American actor, I think, hands down. I mean, Man on Fire. And, Dakota Fanning's a phenom. But he has a way of just bringing himself in every part, it's that's Denzel as a pilot. That's Denzel as a bad cop. It's scary. He doesn't hide behind makeup or not saying anything bad about that at all. But he really brings himself to everything and just plays such a range of characters. And Man on Fire, that intensity from within, and when he starts going after those people,
yes,
man,
yes.
Oh, and then when she asks him, "Do you love me?" "Yes, I do." And it's the tears. Where are you going? "I'm going home."
There you go.
Yeah.
So what scares you?
Podcasts. No.
You're doing fine.
Yeah. What's scared, man? What really scares me is the state of the world, man, the state of the world. I believe, I hope that we're on a track to things getting better. But man, if you said to me 25 years ago, in the early 90s, race would be an issue, sexism, guys mistreating women, people mistreating each other. If you said that that's the way the world would be in 25 years,
yeah,
I would have said there's no way. There's no way. And social media, it's great and it's terrible because not because it gives a voice. I'm big on the freedom of speech. If some idiot wants to be sexist or white supremacist or whatever, it's not that person has a voice or you got to stop their voice. Don't listen, and don't listen. There's nobody is ever going to take over a city. The KKK will never take over a city. I mean, I hope not. I really, unless I'm just delusional and I've lived in very diverse areas my whole life. But I really think that online, people are giving too much weight to what some people say. If somebody says something and it's stupid, don't respond, don't listen. But when you build up, it builds up this other side. And I'm not sure where we're headed with that, but it really scares me because, I want 20-somethings to wake up and be happy. I was happy in my, I was happy in my 20s.
Yeah.
It was generally happy,
Yeah, we got a lot of work to do. But we'll get it done, though. We'll get it done.
Yeah.
Talk to us about how has a failure or an apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure of yours?
No failures were ever good for me. No. Failure specifically. I think doing bad in school. I mean, I was kicked out of nursery school, kindergarten, 6th grade. I had a problem with school, and I think it was the structure of it.
Because weren't you expelled from high school as well?
Oh, yeah.
So talk to us about
okay, James Lipton. Where's that stack of blue cards?
Thank you.
Yeah, fighting, conduct. It was usually, stupidity. Actually, you know what? And that's one of the things that I said I'm going to be open about stuff. I was bullying somebody in high school. And we audio taped it. And the audio tape was fun. This was I guess that was before my time. This was 89. Something I felt deeply ashamed of. I was bullied. I became a bully. I'm not justifying it, but I also believe that I have to be honest and open because I want to show that other people can change. So I was expelled. I was expelled for that as well. I should have been. I would have failed high school. I wasn't going to get my diploma anyway. My failures in school led me to be a better college student, and it really led me to knowing that acting was what I wanted to do. If nothing more, you don't get bored with it. It's different. And you have that bittersweet goodbye when you're done with a project or a play or a class or a workshop. But you're going on to something new. It's a new adventure. And I guess this is what would scare me was walking into a job, one of many side jobs that I had, or in Albertsons, and asking myself, are you willing to do this for the next 30 years? And no.
Yeah.
It was
yeah.
no.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if, say you saw someone maybe in a school or somewhere on the street and they were bullying someone else, what would you tell them? Like in 15 words less, what would you tell them to kind of set them straight really quickly?
I would say you don't have to do this. It's interesting because in my imagination, I'm putting myself in that situation, and there's going to be pushback. There's going to be this or that. But if the kid listened first, it's you're going to end up in jail. This right now is it's not going to end good.
Right.
You know? And you're probably bullying because you're hurt. You're hurting, you know? Put on boxing gloves. Fight. Deal with things that, you know, that way. Something. I would probably, maybe wrongfully, you know, physically intervene and find out and ask them why are you bullying him? Did he do something?
Yeah. Cool.
Oh, he was hitting on your girlfriend? Fine, kick his ass. No, I wouldn't say that.
How do you handle your critics? Because as an actor, everyone sees you, so you have an abnormal amount of haters. How do you handle your critics?
I have a large abnormal amount of haters.
No, you could.
You
don't.
I thought you had a secret list. No, I know. You know, interesting with social media. That's the thing. With it being, you know, the human psyche is not made to know 5,000 people, let alone be told, "Oh, you voted for so and so." Well, 3,000 people have now blocked or called you out or posted stuff about you, called you Nazi or whatever. We're not made for that, you know? But it's life. And I've come to that realization where, you know, I could come on and talk to you and say, oh yeah, you know, I was expelled, just didn't do good, didn't do my homework, or I didn't sell drugs, I didn't contribute to ruining people's lives or anything. It's not true. It's not true. And there's going to be people that are going to hate that. But that's just a part of life, and I've learned to accept that. It's the same thing with acting or movies or whatever. And listen, I have something to say to critics for actors, because I'm one of them. I could sit down with you and off the air, I could be critical of any actor and work and this and that. They critique themselves much harsher than any of you haters out there. I can tell you that right now. Yeah. Especially actors, and especially the brilliant ones. They are so highly critical of themselves.
Yeah, that's true. I've heard that before. Tell us about the darkest time in your life, how you got through that, and what did you learn from that experience?
Nearing the end of, I was selling ecstasy and I was using ecstasy. I was using a lot of drugs at the time, drinking, you know, which I had never done when I was a dancer. I didn't drink. I was really into diet, everything. And it was early 2001. Dr. Johnson had let me. I was writing and directing my play called Typecast, about actors auditioning, and had a weekend partying, and I had some pills that were bad. They had, I think it's called tricyclids. There was something in it. It wasn't MDMA, and I used to take a lot. You know, when I would take them, I ended up passing out isn't even the right word. I've never felt this before. It felt as though I was a television, when the old televisions, when you turn them off and the light would go down and it would go into that little ball of light. And I remember I was looking, I had my phone in my hand, I was trying to call my best friend, and I wasn't able to figure out how to dial the phone. And I remember it was like the black screen of my life was shutting down.
Right.
And it didn't feel like I was going to sleep. It didn't feel that I was getting knocked out or passing out. It felt as though I was shutting off. And I was able to call, and I refer to him as my brother sometimes, but my best friend runs in, picked me up, carried me to Palms of Pasadena, and they pumped my stomach twice.
Wow.
They had to do it twice because there were so many pills in there. The doctor said, I still think he was punishing me. Good for him. But they, you haven't had your stomach pumped.
No,
it's not a common thing. They put a tube,
right,
you know, and it's rough. And if you throw it up, they have to do it again. So, you know, and I remember looking at my best friend and saying, "Man, I saw angels and they're coming for me. I don't want to die." And he slaps me in the face and says, "You're not going to die." Stomach pump twice. I just remember thinking, man, where's one of the many moments of where's my life going? I was an artist, and then going back to Dr. Johnson, and and saying I could still, I'm fine, and that just that feeling of mortality, and the thought of today's the day I'm going to die, and they're going to find me on this floor, and that's it. And I didn't do anything, I didn't do anything. It was dark. That was a really dark time. There were some before, some since, but that was, that was one where I feel that was my beginning of clawing my way out of that world.
Yeah. And thanks to Dr. Johnson for eventually letting you back, letting you do that. So cool. When you were growing up, who was the most influential person for you?
Good and bad, my dad. Because I was able to see how, be able to express myself emotionally. Music teacher, Mr. Sovak. So many, man, I mean, to say that there's so many people is, I know it sounds so broad, but there were a lot of those people that I would meet, and it would just be a Dr. Johnson, or when I was working at 7-Eleven or a convenience store overnight and going to college during the day, the truck driver that would come in and we would talk about metaphysics, and life and what's life really about. So I don't know if that's a horribly awful, watered down answer, but I do have to say, I mean, ultimately my grandfather, who I would always aspire to be, he had such patience. He never swore around my grandmother and was such a strong man, but didn't act, wasn't toxic in any way. And, my dad, for being open emotionally. I mean, I wouldn't be the way that I am if it wasn't for him. So
yeah, great. No, perfect answers. Whatever you say
cool.
is the right answer. No worries at all. So we're going to go back to your 21-year-old self. You were 21. You were in Tampa still, correct?
Yes.
So you're in Tampa?
I turned 94. I turned 21.
Okay,
yep.
So we're going to talk to 21-year-old Chris and give him some advice based on what you know now. He's been very reflective in this interview, which I love.
Yes.
What else? If you could step into 21-year-old Chris's life right now and give him some advice, what would you say?
There's a company called Apple. You need to invest. Then there's going to be a social media company called Facebook. Bitcoin during these months.
That's funny.
Yeah. It's man. The way my brain works, I would be so worried about messing with the time. What is it? The time. The continuum.
Continuum.
The time continuum.
Yes.
Go back.
Yeah.
I would say, don't mess with the drugs. Don't start drinking. It's not for you. Eat right and treat people better. And just anything that you want to do, just go for it. And I wouldn't say anything, even if I went back, successful, not successful, in his eye, I would never say or let him know, well, this is what I'm doing. I would just say, be a better person. Be careful, you're going to abuse yourself. It's in you. Don't think that it's not going to start when you're 25, because it will. And to be a better person to other people.
Good. What is the one lesson in life that took you the longest to learn?
Well, I probably haven't learned it yet. I probably haven't learned it yet. Still learning. I think ultimately, Jeez. It's so easy to say that we forgive ourselves, but do we really? Because we would be better to other people, I think, if we really forgave ourselves. I've really learned about what it's like to be a man. That's such a weird term. Be a man. We're told that from our mothers, from our fathers, from our friends, from rap music, from country music, from feminists. Be a man. What does that really mean? And that's something that I've embraced over the last couple of years. What does it mean for me to be a man? Does it mean overpowering everybody? Does it mean being the baddest dude or the dude that just doesn't take shit? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means being a man, being more the way my grandfather was, being somebody that helps, being somebody that being someone that, I want people to look back and say, oh, you know what, Chris, he was a good guy. He made a difference. He made a difference. Rather than he was the toughest guy on the block. We love Mike Tyson now. We love him now so much more. I always loved him. Yeah. But I always stood up for him. People didn't like him because he was a badass black dude at 20 years old, and people were afraid of him. Right. And when he got beat, I remember when he got beat by Buster Douglas, people said, oh, I'm so happy he lost. And then he went through, and I felt so bad because he could have held the title for 20 years, I think. He could have gone in the UFC and been an MMA fighter. He's a genius. He's a genius boxing expert and ferocious and talented. And he went through the Mike Tyson stuff. And now when his one-man show is just beautiful, and people see him now, and they're going to remember that. And that's what I want. I don't want people to remember, oh man, I remember when he kicked this dude's ass, or when he slept with 50 girls over the summer or whatever. And I'm not saying that that's what happened, but he got all the girls or whatever. I want people to remember he was a good person. He left the world better than when he came into it, so... Yeah. Did I answer the question?
You did.
I answer
Yes. In a roundabout way, you definitely answered.
Geez.
And you told us a good Mike Tyson story, too.
Oh, man.
Mike Tyson shows his vulnerability. That's why people love him so much more now than before. Before, he wouldn't show his vulnerability. So, definitely. Every great person has a sentence. What is your sentence? For example, my sentence would be, I help people unlock their creativity by teaching them how to DJ. What is your sentence? I am helping people realize that they can express their emotions and not be ashamed. I'm there to let you have your catharsis, and I'll play the bad guy. I'll play whatever, because I believe that art it's healing. I believe that it's healing. So I am an artist that is here to help people heal themselves. Love it. What is one new habit that you've added to your daily routine in the past year or two that has been most beneficial?
Meth. No. I diet. Okay. Very specific. Yeah, I do a ketogenic diet. I know there's some people are.
Okay.
Yeah,
it works for you.
It works for me, and I think the bottom line is whether somebody's vegan or vegetarian or keto or just eats meat or just eats Oreos or whatever. Well, that's the bad thing. Is sugar's really bad. Taking sugar out of my diet has been one of the most difficult things, and yet one of the most beneficial things. Cognitively, I don't take naps. I intermittent fast, so I eat at a specific window during the day. And for me, my diet, what I put in my body, is the foundation of every single other thing that I do. If I I could talk about acting or this or helping people, you can't do anything if you feel like shit.
Right.
And I feel like shit if I'm putting bad fuel in my body And if I don't look the way I want to look, it makes me feel bad. I'm not in my optimal self, and I know that I'm not. So,
Okay. Yeah. I also practice intermittent fasting, so I understand that
Oh, do
process.
you?
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you
So
what part of the day?
So I try to eat between 1:30 and 2, and another meal like 6:37, and that's it.
Okay.
Water the rest of the time.
All right.
It's hard, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I can do it well. Now, when I'm DJing late at night, I might have something else, but for the most part, it works. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool. I didn't know you did intermittent
Yeah,
fasting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Fun fact about Amani. So
Yeah.
yes. So we're very voracious readers here on the Amani Experience podcast. If there was 1, 2, or 3 books that you feel people should stop what they're doing right now and start to read them immediately, what books would you recommend?
War of Art. War of Art.
That's Steven Pressfield,
Yes,
correctly?
yes.
Know it well.
Yes. And I know it's a cheat, but I have the audio book. But get it, read it, listen to it. It's fantastic. I heard about it for a few years, and I just got the audio book. It was just I've listened to it a few times now and taken notes. It's amazing. And one other one. I think there's a disconnect between a lot like acting, the acting world, right, the Hollywood world, and regular people. Let's say regular people, meaning the real heroes, the lifeblood of the country, people that go and do a job and they take care of their families and they, and there's a disconnection between them, and this goes in line with I think people need to learn about acting, what actors do. I recommend a book. I work with Howard Fine. He's my acting coach, teacher, mentor out here, and his book, Howard Fine, A Vision of the Craft, acting,
good.
is absolutely fantastic. And I think if people who aren't into acting read it, they would see what we're trying to do as actors, and maybe we can make a connection, because there is a definite disconnect between, you hear people say, oh, celebrities, this, that, and the other thing, and then you hear celebrities, they're disconnected, they don't know what goes on in the real world. Well, let's learn. Let's learn about each other, and I'm surprised that a lot of people read about a lot of things. Read about acting. His book is fantastic. It's emotional for me, and I just think it's something that people could pick up and read and understand what the process is, and they'll watch movies differently.
Good. Great suggestions. We'll add it to the show notes. Tell people about Corbin Nash and what's going on with that project.
Oh, Corbin Nash. Yes. It's a movie we shot 2 years ago. I almost said 2006. 2016. And it is hitting theaters April 20th.
Yes.
It will be hitting a limited amount of theaters, then it's going to go into Netflix and those other tiers.
Right.
I'm not sure the exact ones. I don't want to say Hulu and then it's not, but it's a bunch of those, and DVD, of course. If you're able to go see it in theaters, see it in theaters. I saw a screening of it. It's a great movie. It's a fantastic movie to see on the big screen. Corey Feldman's in it. He's phenomenal. I just want to say, that guy, we're roughly the same age. I grew up with him. He danced, he did Dream a Little Dream. He hung out with Michael Jackson, Goonies, Lost Boys, Stand By Me, the voice of Donatello or Michelangelo. One of the Turtles. He was in so much of our lives, and a lot of people just, will brush him off as whatever, he's weird or whatever. He's an artist. He's quirky. And I'll tell you, he's a great guy. He's very professional. And I absolutely loved working with him. And I was working with a dude that's been doing this since he was 1.
Yeah.
So watch the movie. It's a fantastic performance. Nobody's going to be able to say otherwise. Bruce Davison's in it, Malcolm McDowell, Rutger Hauer, Courtney Gaines, the lovely, beautiful Fernanda Romero is in it. She's so good. It's such a cool, vampire slasher movie, and then she just brings such a grounding heart to it. Well, there I go with the love stories. With the love stories, she's so great. Mexican American actress. She's fantastic, and of course the star of the movie, Dean S. Jagger, was so cool to work with. Such a great guy. His brother Ben Jagger is the director, and Richard Wagner, the producer, Carmenello, producer. He's the casting director who cast me on Operation Repo back years, and then brought me in for this. And this crew, it was so awesome to work with everyone. Thomas Q. Jones is in it. He's a football player. He was in Straight Outta Compton.
All right.
He's that mean dude outside smoking the cigarette. Like, hey Jerry, it's a nice house. I got to do a scene with him where I'm intimidating him. Like, no, that's acting.
Role reversal.
Yeah, that's acting. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we'll add the clip to the trailer in the show notes. Back to the love story. Like, I grew up, John Hughes was a really big influence on me. Pretty in Pink, Some Kind of Wonderful. So, I get it. Those weren't really tragic endings, though. So I was a little bit more the she foo one. But I get that. Tell people how they can find you online. Social media, what are your kind of handles? Where you hang out?
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Chris Pardal, ChrisPardal. My Facebook, look, we all have the dreaded, it's not a fan page, it's my actor page, so it's Chris Pardal Actor.
Got it.
Go to that, like it. I answer all the messages and everything. My other page is filled up, so if you try to add me, I can't do it.
That's cool.
But I interact with everyone. I don't do the talking in the third person and Chris is coming out. It's me. If I'm not too busy, I'm talking to everybody. I've really built all the people that I know on Facebook are people that I've met or 1, 2, 3, 4 degrees away from people that I've met, and I constantly talk to people. I say hi. I reached out to somebody the other day. I said, hey, thanks for the ad. So, appreciate it. Cool. And she said, oh, yeah, my husband's an investor in the movie that you're coming out. I'm like, oof, cool. Good. Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we just want to say thank you for being on the show. I really respect your journey, what you've been through, how you're still here, still giving out positive advice. And you're working hard, and I respect any person that's been through what you've been through and continues to work, so keep it up. Much respect. And we like to let our guests end the show by just signing out and giving any last minute words of wisdom or advice. So I'll just say thank you very much again and take us home.
Well, I want to say, because I looked you up before I came here, and I have to say, so much respect for you. You still spin vinyl, and that is so cool. DJing, the rave scene, the hip hop scene, and I have mad love for you doing that and teaching it. That is so cool that you do that. Too bad that we lost Jam Master Jay. He had a DJ Academy.
Yeah. I went to Scratch Academy. That's
Did
where I
you?
went. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Out here in LA back in like 2012, 2013, 2014. Went there twice. Once for DJ school, once for music production. So.
Oh, so it's still
around. It's here
good.
in LA, New York, Miami, Atlanta, Chicago, and I think Philly. So it's grown to 6 places. It's still thriving. It's doing well. So,
That's great, man. Yeah. That is so cool. But everyone, be uncomfortable. You're never gonna be ready. So that's the other thing my coach always says. Howard, fine. You're never ready. The first thing you say is a lot. You're not ready. So just do it. Just go. So just do it. Just go. Plan. Don't be careless, but just do it. Be willing to be uncomfortable and be good to each other. Be good to each other. Say a kind word to somebody. Donald Trump needs a hug more than anyone.
Yes. With that, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Amani Experience podcast. You can check out the show notes on amaniexperience.com/podcast. Please remember to leave us a review on the platform you are listening on and share this podcast with anyone who you feel would benefit from listening. See you soon on our next episode.